Welcome to the Product Impact Podcast. I'm Brittany Hobbs. These are the most important numbers in AI right now, explained and connected. So let's get into it. Stanford just published its 2026 AI Index, and there are 3 numbers in it that every leader needs to sit with. The first is adoption. 88% of organizations now report using AI in some capacity. That's not a trend line anymore. That's saturation. So if your organization is still in the should we adopt AI conversation, you are in the 12%. And that 12% is shrinking fast. The second is investment. So global corporate AI investment hit $581 billion in 2025. That is a 129% increase from the year before. And 92% of companies are actively increasing their AI spend year over year. The money is real, the commitment is real, and the pressure to prove returns is now the dominant conversation in every boardroom. Now, the third is one that should make every American enterprise leader uncomfortable. The performance gap between the best US and Chinese AI models has collapsed to only 2.7% difference. In May of 2023, the gap was between 17 and 31 percentage points. And here's the number that frames it. The US spent $285 billion in private AI investment. China spent $12 billion. So 23 times less, and the gap is nearly closed. Now, China now holds 69% of global AI patent filings. It leads in publications. It installs industrial robots at 9 times the US rate. The implication isn't that China is winning. It's that compute and capital alone are not what determines who leads. It's architecture, talent, strategy, and application discipline. That's what closes that $270 billion spending gap. Now, if you're leading AI strategy and you don't understand token economics, you're making budget decisions blind. So let me make this concrete. Every AI model processes languages in tokens. So roughly 4 characters per token, or about 3/4 of a word. Now, every question that you ask, every document that you feed in, every response that you get back is measured in tokens. And tokens have a price. So right now, Anthropic's pricing tiers look like this. Their fastest model, Haiku, costs $1 per million input tokens and $5 per million output tokens. Sonnet, their mid-tier, is 3 and 15. And Opus, their most capable, is 5 and 25. So OpenAI's comparable pricing is slightly lower across the board, and budget models from Google and OpenAI start under 50 cents per million tokens. Those numbers sound small, but they're not at scale. So we published an analysis this week on what it would actually cost to use Claude Design to replace Figma for a real product. The first draft costs about 22 cents, so not much, but a 200 screen product at refinement scale, so that might be 50 iterations in a cycle that real design work requires, runs at roughly $2,600 plus $200 to $900 a month in ongoing system updates. So every interaction in Figma, by comparison, costs 0. It's just your headcount. The full analysis is on productimpactpod.com, and I recommend reading it if you are evaluating AI design tools right now. But the same cost dynamic applies everywhere. A single complex analysis that processes a 100-page document can consume tens of thousands of tokens in one call. Multiply that across a team running 20 queries a day, and you're looking at real money fast. And this is where the pricing model question becomes strategic.
Enterprises are struggling to scale the value of AI products. AI product licenses go unused, and teams struggle to create value. The data is bleak. $490 billion in enterprise AI spending is delivering nothing. Introducing AI Value Acceleration, the consultancy specializing in enterprise value creation. Make sure that your spending doesn't go to waste and find out exactly where the value creation of adopting AI products stalls. AI Value Acceleration offers 3 services. Value Assessment. In 3 weeks, get clarity on where value is being created, lost, and why. Value Amplification. Go deep and build a playbook that learns from power users and identifies new workflows. And Value Acceleration. Prove what works and how your vendors must improve their platform for you. Learn more at aivalueacceleration.com or look in the show description for info.
CNBC published a piece this week arguing that AI demand is actually inflated and that only Anthropic is being realistic about it. Their point is that Anthropic is shifting enterprise pricing from a flat rate seat license to per seat plus per token billing. So this means that costs now scale with actual usage, not just headcount. If your team uses AI heavily, you pay more. If they don't, you pay less, but you're still paying for seats that nobody is using. And that's the proof gap pattern that we talked about last episode. There's some other pricing tools that are important to understand or ways to get around some of these pricing changes. So one is called prompt caching, and this gives you roughly 90% discount on context. So if your agents are processing the same reference documents repeatedly, caching changes the economics dramatically. There's also batch processing, so sending requests asynchronously for a 24-hour turnaround. It is roughly a 50% decrease off of standard pricing. So these are footnotes. For enterprise workloads, the difference between naive API usage and optimized usage can be 5 to 10 times the cost. The future of work implication is that token literacy is about to become a core competency, not for engineers, but for the people making procurement decisions and for the people designing workflows and setting AI budgets. If you don't know what a token costs and how your workflows consume them, you are the person who doesn't read the electric bill before buying industrial equipment. Let's talk about the future of AI. The dominant narrative for AI for the last 3 years has been that the company with the most compute wins. More GPUs, more data centers, more capital, more capability. But the Stanford data directly challenges that. China closed a 30-point performance gap to under 3% while spending 23 times less. DeepSeek R1 briefly matched the top US model in early 2025. And Chinese labs are finding efficiency breakthroughs that US labs, flush with capital, are not being forced to find. And that's not a compute story. That is an architecture and application story. Now, ask yourself, if the future of AI were really about bigger models and more compute, why did Apple just pick their head of hardware as their next CEO? This week, Apple announced that John Turnus, Senior VP of Hardware Engineering, will succeed Tim Cook on September 1st. Now, not a software leader, not an AI researcher, the hardware chief. And alongside that, Johnny Srouji, the architect behind every Apple silicon chip, was elevated to a newly created role of Chief Hardware Officer, consolidating all hardware development under one umbrella. Now, Apple is making a big statement that the next era of AI will be one at the silicon and device level, not the model level. Custom chips that integrate AI processing on device. Privacy architecture that keeps your data on your phone. An ecosystem where every software update reaches 1 billion devices instantly. Apple posted a record $143.8 billion quarter, up 16%, with services at $109 billion and customer retention at 92%. All of that without shipping a single AI feature anyone would call industry leading. The lesson is the same one the China data teaches us. Raw compute, more GPUs, more data center capacity is a commodity. You can rent it. you cannot rent is the integration between intelligence, silicon, software, and the experience that it delivers. That's what Apple is betting, that custom chips designed for specific AI workloads, tightly coupled with the software and services that reach 1 billion users. China is proving the same thing from the research side. So architectural efficiency closes a gap that spending alone cannot. The companies that define the next decade of AI won't be the ones with the biggest cloud bill. They'll be the ones that own architecture from chip to experience. And if your AI strategy starts and ends with which model you're licensing, you're building on someone else's foundation without a core competency. Let's talk about vibe coding. It has never been easier, but security is vital. This last section I want to talk about is for every builder, every founder, every product team shipping with AI right now. The tools have never been more powerful, and that leaves us open to so many security risks, especially when you have people building who hadn't historically been considering those security issues. Now, let me give you the numbers. Anthropic's Mythos preview, the most capable frontier model, identified thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities across every major operating system and browser. There was 271 in Firefox alone. The UK's AI Security Institute assessed that it succeeds at expert-level hacking tasks 73% of the time. In one test, it autonomously chained 4 vulnerabilities into a working browser exploit: renderer escape, sandbox escape, privilege escalation, with minimal human supervision. So Anthropic's own safety team said it directly. AI lowers the skill floor for offensive operations. The number of people capable of launching sophisticated attacks just expanded dramatically. And Anthropic responded by launching Project Glasswing. Its 12 partners, including Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Cisco, and CrowdStrike, deploying Mythos for defensive security. That's the right move, but this month, unauthorized access to Mythos was reported through a third-party vendor environment. So the model that finds 0 days was itself compromised through a supply chain gap. And that supply chain pattern is already playing out across the tools builders use every day. So this month, Vercel was breached through Context AI, a third-party tool. Customer credentials were stolen. Databases, access keys, and source code were listed for sale on breach forums for $2 million. The attack vector, an employee downloading game exploits on a working machine, infecting it with Luma Stealer, which harvested credentials that unlocked Vercel's system. Lovable, one of the most popular vibe coding platforms used by teams at Uber, Zendesk, and Deutsche Telekom, exposed source code, database credentials, and AI chat histories for every project created before November 2025. The vulnerability was a basic authorization flaw. So the API checked whether you were logged in, but never checked whether the project was yours. So Lovable's initial response was to call intentional behavior. The fix took 48 days, then they broke it again and exposed projects for another 76 days. These aren't edge cases. These are the platforms that builders are shipping production apps on right now. The vibe coding has made it possible for anyone to build and deploy software within hours, and the same speed means security shortcuts compound faster than ever. So every API key stored in an environment variable, every third-party tool granted broad permissions, every authentication check that's assumed instead of verified. If you are building with these tools, and you should be, treat security as a first-class concern from day one. Audit your third-party integrations, rotate credentials regularly, and never store secrets in the environment variables without marking them sensitive. And assume that the platform that you're building on has vulnerabilities you haven't found yet, because the evidence says that it does. There are 3 things to take back to your team this week. First, before your next AI purchase, ask your vendor how your pricing works when usage scales. The industry is shifting from flat licenses to pay per use. And the difference between a team that understands that and one that doesn't is 5 to 10 times the cost. Get someone on your team who is fluent in how AI billing works. It is the new literacy. Second, the companies winning right now aren't the ones with the most powerful AI. They're the ones with the best systems built around it. China closed a 30-point capability gap on a fraction of the budget. Apple posted a record quarter without leading on any AI feature. Bet on your architecture and your ecosystem, not the model. Third, the most capable AI models can now find and exploit security vulnerabilities across every major platform autonomously. If your team hasn't reviewed what that means for your own projects and products, that conversation needs to happen this month, not this quarter. And 2 quick announcements before I go. We just launched the Product Impact news platform at productimpactpod.com. It's the fastest way to get the AI product strategy news that actually matters for your career, curated, no filler. So if today's episode was useful, the news platform goes even deeper on stories like these every week. Check it out. And on my side, at AI Value Acceleration, I'm putting together a major report on where enterprise AI investments are actually creating value and where they're stalling. So if you are responsible for evaluating the success of a major AI investment in your organization, whether you're leading it, funding it, or trying to prove that it's working, I want to talk to you. So reach out at aivalueacceleration.com. Your perspective will help shape this report, and the report will give you the benchmarks that your leadership team is asking for. Sources for everything in today's episode are linked in the show description.
Thank you for listening to the Product Impact Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us and leave a comment to inform the conversation. This episode was brought to you by PH1. Founded in 2012, PH1 is the expert consultancy that empowers your team to ship products that are proven to deliver impact in the AI era. PH1 specializes in measuring the impact of AI products, improving performance of LLM-powered products, and working with leadership to define an AI vision and product strategy. PH1's clients have included Spotify, Microsoft, Mozilla, National Football League, Hims and Hers, various government agencies, and various universities, amongst others. PH1 is the expert you need to prove that your next release will deliver the impact you need. Visit ph1.ca.